Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Dave Dobbs here. It's Friday the 6th of May. I thought I was going to say May the 4th, as in May the 4th be with you, but it's Friday the 6th of May. And I'm here with my little Shanty. Where's she gone? And the cat. They're getting on a little bit better. Well, they're getting on really well, aren't they? Come on. Come on. Come on. They're actually playing with each other, which is amazing. They're all getting on. I wish everyone else in the world was getting on, but lots of stuff is going on at the moment. Where to start? I think what I'm going to do is, before I go anywhere or start with anything, I think we should come over to Nick Thomas, his channel, because he's just posted strange events in the sky last night in Tampa, Florida. And this lingers in the sky, and these people are commenting. I won't play the video. I'll let you go over and check that link. He's just posted that on May the 6th, and it is obviously today. It's May the 6th, so that's a very exciting shot. And I wanted to explore that shot and how I see that shot. Obviously, it could be a rocket, and most people are going to see that are going to assume that it's a rocket. And notice it's being massively illuminated all the way across. And so if we now come to my model at this time, which is going to be possibly maybe this model here, and we are going to explore this whole thing, because I'm going to blow you away with some amazing data today, because I haven't made a video in really quite a long time, and I've been dealing with a lot of other stuff, so a million apologies, but I've just been watching everything, and I'm going to throw a load of data at you today, a lot of information about where we are, because we now come to where I've got planet X in the center here, and we've got the sun here with Mercury, Venus, Earth and Mars orbiting around it, and then we've got Pluto, what I call Pluto here, and Pluto, which you could also call Eris, which you could also call Uranus, which you could also call Neptune, which you could also call Uranus. Back to Uranus. I mean, I'll show you how this pattern works, and we're going to explore all this a little bit more. But let's just come forward now, using this to where I see us now. And what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in at this point and see all the real bodies that are actually interacting. And so it's a very complicated thing. And see these pair here, what I call Charon and Kerberos. You know, bringing all these different planets of, you know, say in this case the Pluto system. So I'm bringing the planets of Pluto, the orbital moons of Pluto in around, and then we've got Europa coming in over here. You'll see that's the first moon that Galileo discovered, the biggest moon of what he called Jupiter, back in when he discovered it, in supposedly officially came out and said, okay, it's Jupiter, and then he was obviously put under house arrest for saying that Jupiter's right there. Just going to call the dog in. Excuse me one sec. Come on, like that. Yeah, sorry about that. Let me just have a sip of tea. I've just suddenly like a spot off, or whatever you call it. Anyway, a cup of tea seems to clear it. Better than ivermectin. I shouldn't joke. So yeah, so I named this one specifically after Galileo's calling, you know, Europa the largest moon on, it's orbiting Jupiter. And you'll see that there's more going to come in, because you've got this one over here, Hydra, And it's been a long process of chartering these, and obviously I haven't got all the pictures or all the images of all the different flybys placed over, but you can see that Kerberos and Sharon are coming around now, and they're very, it's a kind of like, you know, to bring all of these into one big flyby was very, very difficult. This is the 2010, and then again, come over here. 2000 and have I gone too far there? Have I gone 2012? I think I have. 2011 then, you know, as in Fukushima yeah, the Fukushima disaster in 2011, March 11, 2011. So these are the objects that I see that would, in the original kind of like understanding of these, you know, these are the patterns that we can kind of like we can see how this is going to come back in this year and next year, as in 2022 and 2023 are the, if we come forward, we're going to, we've had a lot of flybys in this, you know, talking about 10 flybys, you know, 5 coming in and 5 going out a year. We haven't been really close to all of them, but we've been really close to some of them. So we're getting closer here. You can see we're over here coming round, and these objects are coming in. So we're getting closer and closer to these objects. And when we come into 2021 and 22, you can see we're really starting to sync up now. And 2023 we have the same thing, the pair, and obviously this isn't, and these aren't as exact as they could be. This was my attempt just to start bringing all of these things into the right proportions and seeing if I could start syncing these up. And we have to remember that this whole system here is crossing the ecliptic. You know, the Pluto system, if you like, is crossing the ecliptic of the sun, and it's then going to be below. And so all these objects have been coming down from Jupiter, and those that have been caught up in our sun, close enough that they've been coming either quite close to our sun or being drawn right into our sun and doing a loop, have been coming from above and going down. And now, because of the long duration volcanoes, we see them coming in and going out. And so just to explain what we're seeing now with the pair is, you know, I've brought all of these to try and bring them in all into this one big motion, so I can show you kind of like effectively since 262, you know, 1800 years of planetary movements. And once you understand one cycle, then you can go one whole cycle back, and then you can see 3,600 years of planetary movements through this model. And excuse me, keep coughing. So coming back to 2000 and where we are now, if we come over to this shot here, and then we come to solarsystemscope.com, and we just come out round about the date now. That's on the 1st of May, but I won't change it. Well, I suppose I could change it, but it might just make it a little bit. I think I'll like there, because we've got America just lined up there. So it's the 1st of May, and we're just trying to get a kind of an idea of where we're seeing this and what's going on. Now, I don't know the time of that that shot that that Nick Thomas just posted. And it could be either or. It could be either or because of this position. If I hold it there, and you see the axis of the Earth is up here and then back down here. Have I got that right? I think I have. Maybe we need to move it a little bit just to kind of like, oh, I can't move it a little bit on that one. But I can. Tell you what we can do is we can move it forward very slightly, and we can just, that's what we'll do. We'll come to the 6th, and we'll just work out exactly where the axis is, and we'll come to the 6th of May when the shot was taken. And we'll have America Need to go slightly faster, don't I? 9, 10. Because we're going to be here ages. Let's pause. But that's 6 May, but I might have... Oh no, hang on. Is that America there? Have I managed to get America there? Let's just get rid of that. So we're going to come up to there. We're kind of like seeing that that the axis is kind of coming down through this way, and we're spinning. And now we're just going to zoom up here. And we're just going to come down. So America, yeah, so that'll do. So we're just going to try and see, because in my opinion, what you're seeing is these objects. They look like they're in our night sky, and they are in our night sky, but you're seeing them come across here, and they're heading down to cross the ecliptic at the most frontal point that the sun is moving. So if the sun is going this way, okay, it could be orbiting something, going round and around, but if the sun is going, say, forward in this direction, all of the objects that are orbiting the sun should all be, if they're rotating round the sun, if they're in orbit round the sun, they're common, depending on their, independent of their inclinations. If they're slightly off the ecliptic or they're completely flat, they're going to be coming around the same frontal point of the sun. There will be different distances away. Their perihelion point will be different. Their closest point, perihelion, the closest point to the helion, the sun, is going to be the same frontal aspect of the sun, even though the sun's going to be rotating, or the energetics of it are going to be in this kind of like in this rotational kind of spin with all this plasma energy. We have this sense that it's moving forward and everything's going round. And you would have thought that all of our astronomers that have added to the Copernicus model, Newtonian science behind the Copernicus model, would have the same perihelion point. But this is where it's a little bit confusing, and if you're not too sure which way the sun's going, the direction the sun is going, then this is going to be an interesting video. So what we'll do is we'll go to we'll just come to this shot I just did before this. I'm just showing you the official perihelion. So this line down here, this kind of like a bearing line, I didn't put this in. This is the bearing line that what do you call it? Solarsystemscope.com just give you. This is what they lay out as their bearing line, and ironically, this is pretty much 20th, 21st of when our Earth cuts through that line. That will be the 21st of June. And so I use months to describe the bearings of the solar system, because for me it's a lot more logical, because when I start using kind of like astronomical terms, they're very confusing, because when someone says, oh, I'm Scorpio, well, Scorpio, the Earth is not actually right next to Scorpio at that point. That's when the sun, whatever's rising, and so the Scorpio sign is actually on the far side of where Earth is at the time when I was born. It's just like, well, that's really confusing. So I don't use kind of astrological signs to define astronomical terms. I use the dates, because anyone who's astrological will understand the dates, and anyone who's astronomical will understand the dates. And so it's an easier way for us to kind of, and then you can kind of go off thereafter and say, well, when the Earth is in kind of like 21st of June, which is round about somewhere in May, June, that sort of period is, in my opinion, the forwardest motion of our sun. That's where our sun is constantly going forward. And so, so I've set it. I haven't set that. That is, you know, that is June the 21st. When Earth cuts through that line, that is June the 21st. That, in my opinion, is also, it concurs. And I can understand why SolarSystemScope.com would have done it like this. It's because when they started kind of laying out all the planets and building a whole system, the first thing they would have noticed is, oh, which way is our sun? Let's set it all to the forward motion of the sun so we can make it all work for going forward motion. But Jupiter's official perihelion point is over here on the 25th of Jan 2023. And if you go back, the exact perihelion again, you come to, as I often say, when Fukushima went bang. And if you go back a perihelion point before then, you come to Carlos Rada's time pretty much of when he was saying Planet X was going to come in. And if you go back again, for the period, you come to when, pretty much when, Chernobyl went bang on the 26th of April 1986. You know, and then that's when we had Krakatoa going off. That's when we had Killer Whale going off. That's when we had Halley's Comet, this big flyby. So we see this pattern, and I've talked about this pattern a lot. But it's interesting because I watched the Oppenheimer Ranch report, you know, and he's big into grand solar minimum and kind of like another very interesting woman, Valentina Zarkova, who kind of like writes, who talks a lot and shows a lot about the evidence of the big carbon buildups every kind of 250, 300 years in the big, the dynamo. She calls it like a dynamo model. You know, that we have the sun is like a big dynamo. And I can't remember the name of it exactly, but it's that sort of, it's grand solar minimum, you know, and she kind of charters this 250, 300 year cycle, which is the same cycle that I'm showing you. And so there's Jupiter's perihelion point. So in this argument, if we're to believe that the official point of Jupiter's perihelion, we were going to be assuming that the sun's moving this way. But then we look at Uranus' perihelion, and we put it almost on the opposite side of where Jupiter is. And you'd have thought, well, we'd all be sharing the same perihelion point for all our planets if the sun was moving. So it's like, from this perspective, we can see in the current, whether you want to call it Copernicus, whether you want to call it Newtonian, whether you want to call it Galileo, because Galileo was put under house arrest, remember, because he said he could see Jupiter right there. And so we were then fed the Copernicus system, that whatever Galileo said kind of backed up Copernicus' model. And we've ended up with this twisted sort of thing where we've really got a static sun. Because now if we come to Neptune's perihelion, we're back to where Jupiter's official perihelion kind of point, very close to. And we're like, okay, so maybe the sun is going. We got two discoveries saying this, that the sun is moving this way. And we've got one from Uranus saying it's going this way. And so then we come to Pluto's perihelion. And we're back over to this way. And we're like, well, why is it common over this point? And then, of course, we've got Eris's perihelion, which is, like I say, completely on the opposite side to Jupiter. And our astronomical community is in kind of like, they love what kind of Mike Brown is saying about, you know, discovering Eris on this side of the one who killed Neptune, is on this side, that it's, so the sun is moving this direction. And yet all the evidence I can, after all the flybys that we've charted of coming ins and goings out, I can, you know, you're left with a very, very confusing notion, because you think about it, you can't have these. If I come back to this model here, and we go and we come back to, let's go back first of all to 262. This is when Jesus was really discovered, in my opinion. This is when the whole religion was created. This is when the big earthquake happened. I often talk about it, you know what I mean, where earthquakes across Asia, or earthquakes across Africa, earthquakes across Europe, and 3 days of darkness, and then we're getting further and further away, and this is the year effectively, I suppose, and then we come to about about year about 1,000, and we're opposite. We're on the far sides, and then we get to kind of like when the first dwarf planet was discovered, 1596, and then we go 84 years, and we come to 1681 when Isaac Newton discovered Halley's Comet, and then the next month later another comet is seen going by, and it's just kind of swept under the carpet as the same thing, but is it going round and around? And if it is going round and around, round by what? But that's 84 years. And then we've got William Herschel in 1770. No, sorry, 16. No, 17. 1770. I'm not too sure exactly what it is now, actually. Normally I can remember all those dates, apologies. But it's something about, it's in the 1572, 1574, I think, pretty much. I'll put it up. And then 1846, 1846. Apologies for me dragging my heels here, but 1846 Neptune, and then 1930 we're discovering Pluto. Now, as I often ask you, is how many years between 1846 and 1930? And of course it's 84. And when I was speaking to, well, let's just stay with this. So, if that's 84, and then we think, well, wonder what kind of like the orbit of Uranus is. The first dwarf planet supposedly discovered after Isaac Newton. And of course it's an 84-year orbit, and you're like, well, that's funny, there's a few 84s here. And then you're thinking, well, if Uranus is 1 times 84, what might Neptune be? And you're suddenly thinking, if you said 2 times 84, you'd be 3 years out. It's not 100. What is it? 182 is 16. It's not 168. It's supposedly 165 years. So, but then if you're onto that kind of chain of thought, you're thinking, oh, I wonder what kind of like Pluto's orbit is. And of course, it's 3 times 84, and you're like, oh my god. And when I watch the Ranch Project, he sees the same things. For me, he sees the same patterns. We're all seeing the same patterns. We're all seeing that that when you're kind of seeing this one cycle of our sun round planet X is about 300 years, and once 3, 6. If it's 18, we'll say 18. Yeah, 6. We'll give you six rotations in 1800 years. So it's kind of like it is on the 300-year kind of mark. And so we would have seen these peaks in carbon cycles, except that you can understand that when the carbon cycle begins and we're close, okay, we're close like this now. And in the last cycle, in Galileo's cycle, up to Isaac Newton, we were still very close. We're still getting these massive objects flying by, but we weren't close. But there would have still been massive influences, and in the time before that, it's the same thing. We're still quite far away, but you're still seeing, there's still influences, and there's still kind of stars and new phenomena that are occurring. But what's interesting is that I can't remember his name now. His name slipped from my mind. But the Oppenheimer branch report was he was saying that basically that he feels that next year is going to be the kind of biggest point. And I found that really interesting because the kind of point of this is that it's been 7 years of intense study, putting all of these into models, and over the years, and just kind of like scanning through this, just as a kind of like as you know, just bringing in so many the earthquakes and the big sightings through this over the years, charting all the major sightings, and this is just a fraction of them coming in off the back here, and predicting them every 200 days, never understanding why I could predict them, why they turned up every 200 days, and this whole process of seeing them, sometimes very rarely, like the Matt Rogers shot on the 15th of August 2016, coming in from the night sky, like this one, where it's that same aspect, and predicting big earthquakes to the day. And of course, I'm of a mind that this flyby here, this earthquake was on the 22nd of November 2016. And in 2016, I don't know if you remember, we'd had the, on the 4th, I think it was on the 14th of October 2016, we'd had that, it's not on this model, I don't think, actually. Which one would it be on? It might be on, I wonder if it's on that one. Yeah, it was that shot. It was on the 14th of October 2016. And you know, it'd come in, excuse the kind of like, it had it'd come in there, and I'm just trying to show you what that was like, but that was the kind of shot on the 14th of October 2016, the Jeff P shot, that, you know, this striped object. And this was what caused the 2008 earthquake, and in Sichuan, and it was caused the 2004. It caused the, let me just show you on this model here, really. We need to come forward, and where we can just, so we've just got, I'm just showing you there, just Hydra coming in. And we'd spent a lot of time working, breaking all these separate orbits down. You know, there's a lot of people that have got involved. But if we just bring that back to 2004. So 2004 is where we're crossing. That's the tsunami. That's on Boxing Day, 2004. The tsunami, massive earthquake, and that sort of stuff. And then we go forward, you know, and then it doesn't sync up. And then we come to 2008, 2007, 2008, and now it's syncing up on this side. And there's other ingredients, because I'm not just showing you. I'm keeping these all on a common inclination here. They're all staying on the same inclination from 2004 up to 2023. But what's happened is, as I've described earlier, this, whatever they're orbiting has gone from above us and is now moving down through and going below. And it's just at the process where it's cutting right through. So we're coming to this critical, massive point. And that massive point, you know, if you think about, you know, so we can see so then we can come back round, and I've spent so many years building so many models to perfect these, to finally build this out. But when we come back to 2016, when the famous Jeff P shot came in, and when so I put these two, these are the one and the same. What I'm bringing in here is actually this object, and it came in across, and it cut across and came across this path. So try and ignore that one, even though I've brought that one in, because that's how I found the cycle of it through the movement of Jupiter. I couldn't believe it. and so it was bringing that in, and this object that I call, I had to kind of like update to, well, it was always, I'd called it kind of like what it was originally, I guess, called the Dobbs object, the original, the first one we were kind of citing every 200 days, and then after 2018, when May the 4th, 2018, we just killer away, started going off, and we started getting these long duration volcanoes, and suddenly we started getting way more sightings. There were just so many sightings, we were saturated. Everything had suddenly come onto the ecliptic, and all these objects that we just weren't seeing. All of the others, apart from the one that was the furthest one, they were all just coming into view. And now we have been saturated, but we'd had such a long run of cycles that we could start making sense of them because we'd watched them for so long. And so 2016, we knew that, I said there was going to be an earthquake on the 24th, and it happened on the 22nd in 2016. I was still of a mind, we were still in a heliocentric model, and I was still kind of in that bandwagon. And then we have to come forward to 2020, and this model was built in 2020, and I was thinking, because we'd seen in 2020, ironically, Nick Thomas again showed this epic shot of the eclipse that we were seeing. We were seeing all the sightings of it, and 2018, 2019. Come forward to 2020. This is just with more of the overlays, but that shot, that it's just, it's this. The reason I'm trying to kind of bring all this around, because it's so much information, and I just, it's become such a massive thing, to present now, and we are dealing with so many other big foes that this is. This is kind of like I realise it's all a bit too complicated now, and it's become a little bit too fantastic for most people. I mean, it overwhelms me now, really. But and we've just had to keep watching all the other flybys coming in and see all this. But another shot that I want to bring you to as well is, it was that shot. There was that shot by Brandon Corey, just showing what we'd expect to see when this object, what that shot that Nick's showing is this object and the tail that's part of the tail that's close to us. And of course, when it comes through our atmosphere, it reacts with oxygen. It's got an iron oxide tail, and it reacts with it's got an iron, if you like, iron particles in its tail, and they react with the oxygen, and I guess become iron oxide, and that's what causes this red dust. And we see it quite often. And I saw this shot, from Alex Luhan, who just posted that on that must have been the day before or something like that. When was it posted? Oh, it was April the 23rd. So very recent. But there's our striped planet. Again, and that, I'm of a mind, is the big object behind our sun. That is what our sun. Well, it's not. Our sun's not orbiting. Our sun and that object are what all of these. This object and all the twin tails are orbiting, and so it's just a fantastic view to kind of see that. Because if we come now back to this shot, and we come up to that kind of time, you can see I've got, that's July, and I'm bringing the forward motion in this model in somewhere closer to July. And what's really happened is that if I bring this back to June, where we are now, May, where we are now, and we're looking across, it's kind of, it's kind of more over here. And these objects, it needs a slight jig, this does. And obviously I could never get my head around that blue object coming in around our sun. And I've had to readjust that because of so many shots. The Steve Rady shot, which, that if I can find that and put that as an overlay, I obviously will. And Matt Rogers' really kind of famous shot of getting that, the following year. Same thing, and there's just been so many shots of the big blue object in 2018, May 2018. It was absolutely massive, and everyone was kind of talking about why is Jupiter so big and so blue, and the electric universe. We're all going, well, it's this and it's that, and everything else like that. But we have to try and bring all of this, and remember that, when we're talking about the real kind of like the people who put their reputation on the line. And talk about specific flyby dates, like Carlos Ferrada in 1939 when he said the massive earthquake in Chile on the 24th of January 1939, the year the Second World War began. And notice how we're all going into war right now for this big time, this big push. And why someone who's really studied grand solar minimum, why someone like I forget his name now, Diamond, whatever his name is, but the Oppenheimer Ranch report, that's very interesting. I really like the guy, and I really like how he stays true to the whole grand solar minimum. And I know this must seem like I'm overly complicated, but I might be massively overcomplicating this. But if I learned so much about all the kind of cycles of Jupiter, and that's why I saw it as Jupiter. That's why I couldn't understand what was happening and the perihelion points, but I could see the mass of these cycles, and I couldn't believe that if you minus the kind of exact duration of kind of like Uranus from as in the 11.89 years, or from when its next official perihelion point, you come to, like I say, Fukushima went bang, and you start seeing that. So if you went to the official, let's ask a client kind of ask you a clever question, seeing if you've been paying attention. If I take the 20th of January, 1939. When the earthquakes occurred, just as Carlos Ferrada said they would occur, and this would be the kind of the official perihelion point. This is when Planet X, as it were, would fly by, even though it was the moon of Planet X, because he was dealing with so much more of a Christian kind of minded audience, I think, back then. But then maybe not. Maybe it was very different. Maybe we are the most Christian minded audiences, and we've been much more damaged by kind of like by controlled media than we really realised. But maybe he was the one who couldn't take it further. And yet, if you were to guess how many years would be between the official perihelion point, the next official perihelion point of Jupiter, between Jupiter, the coming perihelion point on the 25th of January 2023, and when Carlos Ferrada said that we'd get a big flyby and the biggest earthquake, an 8.8 earthquake, or a 9, it was massive, thousands and thousands of people died, so it could have been 9 or much bigger, but it was a massive earthquake that started the Second World War, it occurred on the full moon on the 20th of January 1939. How many years would that be exactly? th the 1st, 1939, add 84 equals 20th of January 2023, of course. Like, this thing is... But we have a problem with this. And this is why I'm making this video, to try and bring all of this around, to try and show you that, you know, all the perihelion points contradict. You know, there's no given forward motion for your sun in your current Newtonian science. They're all over the place. And everyone's contradicting each other, throwing these systems, and yet this number 84 keeps reoccurring right through the whole system. It's a bit like, you know, you're seeing the moon, and then the next time it comes around, and you've never seen the moon before, you're a baby, just been born, and you're just learning, and it comes around, and you see the moon, and you're like, that's the moon, and or maybe you just arrived from Earth, and it's all just new, and you know, you're just learning, and someone tells you that's the moon, and the next time you see it, like, you say it's the moon, and they're like, no, it's, you know, it's John, or it's Peter, or it's Pluto, or it's something else. Well, and just in the same fashion, you know, we kind of say, you know, we discover Uranus and we say it looks a bit like Jupiter, but it's blue. And then we discover Neptune and we say it looks a little bit like Uranus and it's blue. And then we discover 84 years later, pretty much, and then 84 years later, and then we're like saying, oh, we discovered Pluto, and it's, guess what colour it is? It's like, yeah, it's blue, and it's a bit like, yeah, it looks a bit like Neptune. And we keep going on this cycle because we are not allowing ourselves to know our place in the universe. We're not allowing ourselves to know. So we could see that that this kind of 2023, or if we go back now and we bring all of these models together, all of these objects, is that all of them? I haven't got Hydra in there, what I'm calling Hydra. Okay, that's with, so this is with all of them. So we can see in 2016, come around to 2016, we had this flyby over here, Hydra, or whatever you want to call it, this big blue one, crossing our path, coming over here, causing, you know, causing our the earthquake in 2016, and then we come forward, and we come up to now, and no, sweetheart, come over, come over, come on, right down, good girl. And we come up to this point now that where all of most of these objects are coming in and going out on the same ecliptic plane, and all this object is kind of leveling out. What's happening is, see Europa coming in here, going completely the opposite way around, and so much evidence of this shot, so much evidence of this flyby. This was one we predicted for a long time, and where it comes out here, crosses over here, this is the January flyby mark. This is the February-March flyby mark. These are the July-August flyby marks. And the flybys, if we come back to, can you see Europa coming in over here, just underneath Charon there, but it's crossing there. This is your kind of September. It's like you've got these 4 points, or 1, 2, 3, 4, however you want to see them. You've got these 4 kind of entrance and exit points overall. And I'm of a mind that this big blue object that's coming across now, that's going to cross our path in 2023, I've got it coming in there. Hydra is going to come round, and it's going to cross here in 2000 next year and this year. But I'm of mind that this object, we weren't so close. Pluto system wasn't so close to in 1939, or in the discovery of Pluto's time, even though I've got this perspective when I built this model, I'm of mind that these two systems, the Sun and the Pluto system, weren't as close as they are now. And that the big blue object came in here, like this, if you like. It came in close in 1939. It came in close, and it came through like this, and it went out again, and it caused the earthquake that occurred in Carlos Ferrada's time. And all the evidence is that this was the object, the big object in the cycle, the biggest one. And that because the whole system is closer now, it skews our 84-year story slightly, because this object is coming in and around the Sun like it did in 262, 1800 years ago. And we're seeing all the evidence of the object being there. I've just been in France. I just had to kind of go back, sell my caravan, I've just been trying to sort so much of that stuff out there. And emotionally, I've just been completely blocked up. I've not been able to do anything with Planet X really very much at all. I've just been completely blocked up and going through my own internal process, kind of thinking like, I've been thinking it was going to be, the biggest kind of leveling point was going to be 2023, and I'm constantly thinking that. But I'm going through this mental kind of process that this might be happening now. That this 2023 can't occur here. I'm not saying it can't occur here, because it could. And that object is still going round. It's the one I call Hydra. Sorry, did I call this one Hydra? No, that's the one I call Europa coming in this way. That object is still coming round. That could be very big in January next year. And like I say, all these objects are coming to the same level. It's just whether it syncs up, and it's become quite a confusing thing to get the exact science of these. And that's why, it tortures my head to build these models and to start kind of like, and God knows I've attempted quite a few recent ones. And like I say, you can really see why, if you were building a Planet X system, you get quite frustrated at which way the Sun is going. And so in the end, they just thought, you know what, we're just going to put this on the line of the summer solstice and keep that as the kind of like, we won't give the Sun a forward motion, but we'll set the kind of like the grid lines in accordance to the solstice, because there's no collaboration between all our main players of the forward motion of our Sun. They don't seem to share the same ideas of where we're going. And so you might find yourself not really understanding. Some people, if you were kind of into the Nassim Haramein this idea that the Sun is moving, kind of in this case, the Sun would be going up, and all the planets would be spiraling behind it in a kind of like a big spring. And but of course, when you see the ecliptic plane of the Milky Way, you're not kind of sensing all of these objects sitting on the Milky Way on a big plane. Nothing's going up, nothing's going down, it's all moving on a flat plane, and they've got various degrees of inclination, but nothing's big. Everything is close to the ecliptic plane, and to try and get that motion, to try and understand that though it might seem like these objects are all got a changing angle of intention. It's pointing this way, and then as it's coming around here, it's going in this direction. As it's coming around here, it's going in this direction. And as it's coming around here, it's going in this direction. And as it's coming around here, it's going in this direction. No, that's not the case. It's going in this direction when it's here, forward, in this direction. And it's going in this direction, and this direction, and this is going in this direction. They're all in a forward motion. And their relative speeds are and mass is what's holding them at their relative places in these orbits. But it's an orbital relationship where they're all going forward, and so they're not following in kind of their relationship to one another is not following the rules of Kepler's rules of kind of orbital mechanics. These objects that are orbiting the Earth, orbiting the Sun, are following all the rules of Kepler's orbital mechanics. But objects that are coming in and are coming off have a split of Kepler's orbital mechanics, because you've got the perihelion point of something coming around here, and then you've got the what's the chemical name for iron? Yeah, iron. So it's perihelion. As in, because if this object is spewing out iron and not helium, I don't know if that follows, but it's an interesting idea. But you can imagine that, Kepler's rules are getting a bit squished if objects are coming in off this, and I suddenly got a perihelion point around our sun, and then a sort of whatever you want to call it, around Pluto. Pluto. That sounds good. Pluto. So you've got a Pluto perihelium kind of like thing going on here that's causing all sorts of interesting things. And then you've got this idea of these different types of orbits, that this and this and this, because all of our sun, this Pluto system, and Planet X are all being able to hold this space because they're actually all locked in their orbital relationship with the Milky Way. So they're all flying around in their orbital relationship, all kind of locked into this orbital relationship, but they're all going forward. Our sun is, like I say, it's somewhere around May, June. That seems to be, could go round to July, could be a little bit more in the July period even. It's really, 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 really difficult to get the fine tuning of this. But you will see pretty much that when you actually do the orbital mechanics, you will see that my grid lines are set pretty much the same as, maybe a bit way to the where are we? Just going to bring it to the forward motion around there. So I've got it almost over too far to the I kind of like, yeah, it's kind of, even that is, it's kind of almost like more in that direction. So I'm a little bit off, but it was a big process in discovery, building the model and start allowing for it, and of course it's I guess so much of it was, you know, that shot that, let me just find that shot that, the shot that, that I just, for me, changed everything. It was when it was just like I could breathe a sigh of relief, and it was, you can't really see another phenomenal event. Now you know, that was on. It was like the 3rd or something, but it was actually it was on the 1st of September 2019. Alex Lujan again, and you can see the whole object, as I so often show you, and when you really zoom into it. Maybe there's a better shot. Zoom in. Did I? Yeah, you get to really kind of see the whole object. And like I say, we'd watched it coming in. Ironically, like Alex Lujan had posted on the 3rd of July the shot of it coming in, and then that's the shot of it going out the other side. Except we're not anywhere near the other side. You know, that's in that was in September, and it had gone well ahead of us in that flyby. But you could see the red in the tail. You could, you know, it's I just don't know. But the you know, it clearly wasn't. It'd come in and gone out, and it hadn't been orbiting our sun. That was orbiting something over here, and now we're told that our sun, that's made of hydrogen fusing into helium, the lightest on the periodic table, is going to be heavier than whatever this orbit is, which spews out red iron, not helium. This is going from this has gone from hydrogen to helium to up the periodic table, and it's just become denser and denser in its core and bigger, and it's spewing out iron. And we're supposed to assume that these big heavy things, really light things like our sun, would orbit. There's so much peculiarness in our astronomical models and the way we see and everything. And this contradicted everything, and it gave me a get out clause that I could finally leave the heliocentric model behind. And I'd been experimenting with so many of the shots. And you know, you see the kind of like, you see those shots that, you see the type of shots that, skies turn blood red. You know, you see the type of shots like this shot that Brandon Corey Nagley often show, and I'm not too sure where that imaging comes from, but you know, there's the let me just stop that sound. There's all the, let me just see if we can get that away so you can see it. Let me just come back over there and press that again so you can hopefully see that. Now you're assuming that all this object, or if we come over to say this next image he posts quite often, this image here, does he show an enlarged version of that? Yeah, there he does. So you're seeing the sun there, you're seeing all the planets that you assume are, and then you're seeing this object, and this, you know, this is either Zakai Sitchin's shot, or it's possibly Robert Harrington, or who was a big influence to Zakai Sitchin. But it's just kind of like your picture of this object coming in. It's taken 3,600 years to finally come in, and it comes in, and it comes around, and it goes out the other side. And that's the kind of like, you know, if I put Planet X, and I show images, within no time, we're going to come up with he says if we can find one of the images I was looking for, but maybe if I put Planet X 1800. Because of the 18... Oh no, it's 3,600 years. Sorry, Planet X, 3,600. Yeah, we're gonna kind of hello. Little putty cats come to say hello. Look at them. Look at you guys. Are you getting on all friendly? Look at them all friendly. Look at you guys. Little... That's very lovely. Anyway, I was going to hopefully show a kind of image. Oh, that's the sort of thing I'm kind of talking about. This kind of idea of something coming up and around, and this is the model that we've all been brought up on. And of course, you know, this idea of a 3,600 year orbit, and then it cuts through here after 3,600 years, spins over the top, causes a bit of interesting stuff, and then cuts through again, and we're like, whoa, that's a massive flyby, but that's going to be over and done. This is its perihelion point. It's taken 3,600 years to finally come in, whoom, spins around the sun, and it's gone again. And we are seeing something that's been going on since the Carrington event in this current cycle, and then we've seen non-stop activity from 1859 until now, with real peaks around the Second World War, and now the second load of real peaks where all the long duration volcanoes happen again. And we're saying, can this be from 1939? And this takes 84 years to go from here to here. It just seems like, how's that? Come on, lie down, guys. Come on, lie down. Is that feasible? You know, it's a question, and of course, Carlos Ferrada leaves us with this kind of notion, and when we see this type of notion, but when you see this same image from that perspective, or just, from this perspective, when they're all next to each other. Or maybe I should come further away and I don't know which way I'm going now, and just bring it back from that perspective, where we're just seeing the aerial perspective. How different is that? Really? How did Carlos Ferrada predict that it would be back at this time using that 1800 or that 3,600 year model? That's how did it's the same thing, except that it's the only way you can have this system parked there for the best part of 130, 140 years. It's okay. So that's a bit of a long video. Oh my god! And I just on the drive back from France, it was a beautiful day, and I saw this eagle. Well, it was a buzzard, but it looked like an eagle. I mean, it was a bird of prey, but it was amazing, and it just came in, and it came in from the sun. Well, the sun was ahead of me, but I was going along, and the sun was kind of up here, so I saw it, and I saw the sun. I thought, oh, an eagle coming in from the sun, and it flew down, and it came towards came towards the car, and it just came closer and closer, and I thought, oh my god, you got to get past the car, and then I thought, oh my god, I'm going to hit it, and it came right next to my windscreen, boom, and then down, and just as it came past, it went just to adjust its speed around me, and honestly, the words that came through were, don't forget your missus. don't forget your message. Don't forget why we're all doing this, because we believe that we can get through this. And my message was always, when I was shown this, remember, it's such a crazy time because, they've just fired up the Large Hadron Collider just the last month, late last month. They just fired it up. And and this is what they want to use to open the door. This is my first video I really made, talking about the whole thing that happened on Mars and what Valles Marianus really is on Mars and what the Emperor Hawaiian Seamount Chain really is on Earth and where the water all came from and the massive shift that started all of this and this massive thing that is kind of repeating itself. This massive process that so much effort is trying now to stop reoccurring. And, we are, in our astronomical positions right now, we're coming, like I say, we're coming into the front edge of our sun now. So we're kind of like, that's asteroid alley. That front edge is asteroid alley. If there's objects coming close to us, we consider kind of like when we see them flying out the other side, that's kind of like in the August position. But when things are coming in towards, being drawn in towards our sun and spinning off and coming round, so we associate that of objects coming in towards our sun and then shooting out off the kind of like, close or near the kind of like perihelion point, then their point of exit coming out from that front edge is going to be August. And so that's why we often see the kind of like we might be going forward in kind of like May, June. That might be our forward direction, but stuff coming in from that May, June is going to be cutting around the side. And so that's your kind of like August, September time, where when we cut through that time, we get close to those objects coming around our sun, like coming out the front edge. And so vice versa of objects that are coming in. That's why, the big meteorite that came in over Russia came in on the 14th, 15th of February 2013. Same edge, and then you cut back again and things are coming in behind the sun and coming round that we are literally seeing, that we thought this was all about until these objects started coming onto the ecliptic. And so in many ways this image that Brandon Corey Nagley often shows it's the same as my model, really, and it's what Carlos Ferrada was really showing. It's just that no one really wanted to try and explain to you the kind of how 84 kind of the 84-year cycles fit into that. So it's that's what it is, guys. So we've got everything in place now. They're going to try and start all-out World War III now as we come into this same thing. But are they going to try and make it happen for August 2022? Or is this all about January 2023? We're just in it now. And I want to bring all this now into a new model. There's enough data now. There's enough everything. We've got all the bits in place. We can see everything. Whether we want to see everything. We're all in so many different stories now, and we're all going through such a massive bereavement. As we enter into this kind of phase now, as we're going into a singularity, all of us have kind of made our decisions now, which side of the fences we're on. and well, I don't know if we have, but it's kind of feeling that way. And anyway, this is tried to be reach out to the kind of like the grand solar minimum crowd to try and show you some of the kind of evidence behind the astronomics, the real astronomics that we're really seeing for kind of like that make the grand solar minimum model fall into place and work in the way it does. And it's all just it's all a massive thing that I realise that it's now I realise I've just got to turn it into, I've got to take it into another level, and I would love to bring this into a high level astronomical model where I could really capture the inclinations and the changing inclinations, because this is just arriving onto the ecliptic plane. This is all these things are finally arriving, and we're really so close to this system, and this is all got now kind of everything that's, especially everything that's basically coming from here, if you like, from here, all of these flybys up to basically here, and basically up to the January kind of like 2023, and if not maybe even in the next year, have then got to, you know, these objects. Okay, we're coming away from the ecliptic plane, but now we've got to have all of these same flybys, but the objects are going to be coming up from below and coming around. So we've got all what's happened for the last kind of like 3 cycles of this. We've got all over again. So above, kind of so below. You know, if it's coming in from above and it's going out the other side, it's coming in from below. It just kind of stands to follow. You know, you look at all the big earthquakes that happened in the 50s and everything else like that, and you look at all the big earthquakes happening in the 30s when Pluto was, they were calling it Pluto when it was first coming in. What's that big blue thing? Oh, that's not, well, it's funny, it's got bright blue. It's kind of like, it's kind of because of all the energy makes it all kind of like change. It's the, you know, what do they call it? The Doppler effect. You know, and when did they discover the Doppler effect? Oh yeah, same time as they discovered Neptune. That's why they go blue. Yes. But I can see it. Galileo is big and blue. Yeah, so I think if you want to keep on with this debate, we'll... if you want to keep on with this heated debate, we'll gather some wood and put you on it. Or we'll just lock you up for the rest of your life. There is no big blue thing. And so here we are in this crazy story. All out World War III being pushed in our face. I told you, if you leave Europe, Europe is the Trojan horse to feed Europe into a war with Russia. A war they could drag out for just so long and just feed, you know, and it's a messy war already. All melting each other's tanks with, you know what. And we see the massive volcano, lots of volcanoes going off. There's been 52 volcanoes going off through this period, by the way, guys. It's been major volcanic era. Tonga just went off again, as you might have seen. Kilauea has been really going off. Krakatoa, all your usual suspects. Lots and lots of earthquakes in the Azores, where the fault line that separates the Eurasian plate from the African plate. You know, in my opinion, it's coming through Etna, Stromboli, and La Palma, and going on out to a fractured fault line, if anything, out to the Mid-Atlantic rift and or ridge, and it's that's where the Azores lies, right on that juncture, and they've been having thousands of earthquakes there, thousands, and this big blue object is coming in from the northern hemisphere. And we are going to start getting more and more. Remember, we saw the biggest floods in China in 2019. You know, they said it was as big as it was in 1998 when Comet Halley-Bopp, we were calling it, which was in the grand solar minimum cycle that the Oppenheimer branch report always talks about, these whether you want to call it 11 years, 12 years, but that's what we're seeing, these same patterns. And yeah, it's the same pattern. It's the same thing. It's just it is what it is now. I'm afraid it kind of is what it is, and I'm a little bit stuck as where to take it all from here now, because it's just feels like we're not really touching the sides anymore with any of this story. Really, it's just kind of, but it has to go where it's got to go, and it's got to play its course. And I'm told that unprecedented peace will be waged on this earth, and that those who are trying to drag us into a war with Europe, it will fail, and Europe will not go down this corridor. You know, if they detonate their Large Hadron Collider, and it's all about karma. It's all about creating karma that you can't transfer to the end of this age, and so something else happens, and you're allowed to do this. You know, a cell, its last aspect of trying to fight a pathogen. Once it's been down, you know, it's kind of done all its kind of process of going through information, releasing all the different types of kind of like releasing all the different types of you know, phytoblast cells and T cells and kind of like whatever white blood cells that we kind of release, along with all the information and everything our body might throw in what's called the, you know, in the fight of pathogens, or in the, you know, the sympathetic pathway, as it's called in kind of sometimes called in physiology. You know, this kind of like this defense system against pathogens. And the final phase, if the cells are being taken over by a virus and the virus can't be stopped, the last phase that the cell will do is membrane attack complex, MAC, ironically. And it just means that the cells of the walls are detonated and everything is just lost. That's its attempt to try and stop the pathogen escaping into other cells, try and contain it, so the cell commits suicide. And the Large Hadron Collider is how Mars was destroyed. That's the massive scar that you see on Mars. And where the water came up through in that incident was on Earth, in the Pacific. And that's what caused the Great Flood. In my opinion, this is how I came into this story. I wouldn't come via this whole thing. I came via a whole different story. I came via Mars. You know, that's how I was shown all this. That's where I show my ego, and where my ego is transmitted into my human psyche from. It is not here. It's never been here. It's not on Earth. But it wants to be on Earth. It wants to taste and feel and be part of this mega story. And so it is transmitted into your fourth dimension. It doesn't exist in the Earth dimension. It invades your fourth dimension. Astral realms associated with this planet. That's where this invasion. They see the third dimension, where you are right now, they see it as evil. Because it is a karmic realm and they hate karma. They hate having to be accountable for their actions. They hate it. They can't do and be the beings that they are and operate on their frequency and be in a karmic realm. It just comes back on them and they hate it. They're terrified of it. They run from it. They're absolutely terrified of it. They are terrified of arriving. And as our astral realms are now getting shut down, because this neutralizes all of Earth's astral realms. They can be recreated and restarted, but the electromagnetic shock, if you like, the same thing that caused the massive electromagnetic shock before in 1849, 1859, the Carrington event. Massive electromagnetic event. They say it was a sun, but it wasn't the sun. It was a flyby of the big blue object, but it was like this. It didn't come close, it didn't come round our sun, but it came close to Earth as it flew by, and it was enough to melt every electrical component or every electric component. And the same thing's going to happen. And so they are being forced out of the fourth dimension and into the third. Here, this is why there's been this massive population explosion to accommodate the arrival of these beings. And that it's time now for ego to have a life of its own and to arrive. It's the only way that the human state and the planet can be saved. Because if you've got backseat drivers that are just driving you into the dirt, feeding you every lies that separate you from any truth and where you truly are, and force you into adopting ideas which damage your planet, then you are karmically indebted. And if that story, you attach yourself to that story and it's going to the bottom of the lake and you are attached to it, then you are going to the bottom of the lake with it. It's a crocodile that's taking us through these various different stories. It's dragging us down. And we either have to detach from these stories and see where we really are and what's really going on and look at the absolute truth and know our place in this great galaxy, where we're going, where we're really going, the angle of our sun, where we're going. Start figuring out your intention. You know, you come now to the front edge of where our sun is going, our forward motion, and try and do some meditations of seeing that forward motion, of getting a picture of where you are in the scheme of things. Very powerful for your self-awareness. Very powerful navigation tool in shamanic process. It's a time to really know your place in the universe and in the solar system and in the galaxy, and really navigate through these times, because they're only trying to take you into fear, but they are very limited in what they can do to you if you're not in fear. And they have as many as they need. There's not that many egos on Mars, believe it or not. You massively carry the load. We all massively carry the load. You'll notice that there's certain times in the days when your inner arsehole comes to the surface. There's certain things that trigger it. There's certain relationships that trigger it. Often one ego will inhabit two people arguing. It's the same ego that can drive both, can live off two people, play. We are all facilitating the arrival of the ego, believe it or not, one way or another. We're all in service to the highest, and even if you're in service to the ego, you're still in service. And your highest aspect is working with your choices to work with that which you most want to watch. Neither is good, neither is bad, neither is right, neither is wrong. They serve different agendas, but when this is done and the ego agenda arrives, if it arrives in you, and whoever it arrives and chooses to be the embodiment of that ego agenda in this massive it's like it's moving around. Any one of you can be an ego at any point, depending on what takes you and what you give yourself to emotionally and energetically. And when it comes close to the moment, they will obviously try and really plunge the vibration right down and bring as much fear as possible for the big transit. They want that large hadron collider. It's a serious bang. There's a serious sacrifice. This is a massive sacrifice. It's seen like this can, we can get rid of two foes with one. If Europe won't sign the free trade deal, then all these countries, humanity is being used to detonate a large hadron collider and make this whole, so that those that have really invaded this Earth, those that really invaded Mars, can go on to the next planet, and the next, and the next. And we're actually trying to save the souls on Mars and bring them back to a place where they can incarnate again and come back to the table of life. This was the message that I was given, that it's the reason why this relationship has been allowed to go on, and this duality of humanity has been allowed to go on, is because when we arrived, as the Dalai Lama said, he said when we arrived, we were raping and pillaging and whatever, we were on low vibration when we came in. And many of you now are going up to the fifth dimension after this. You're already there. You're already there. But you're gonna, your whole soul address, many of you can't handle going into your fourth dimensions because they're so invaded. You can't go there at all. You can't sleep. You can't enter into them because of entities that have invaded them, that you cannot go into those spaces anymore. And but you can go into the fifth. All your best is in the fifth. And the fifth is a communal realm. It's not just your realm. It's not where you are, just the God of that realm and those that you've invited in. This is all of everyone's best, and the only thing that allows you in there is your consensual agreement to be of peace. It's not a karmic realm. It's a peaceful realm. Anyway, that's, I always, my messages are always about this, really, and that's where this whole message has come for me, and we go through this massive process here. You're in it now, and we've done, I was imagining it was going to be way bigger for these flybys, and it hasn't been nearly as big. Okay, there's been lots of volcanoes going off, and there's been lots of storms and what have you, but it's not been as big as I thought it would be. And that simply means that these two objects, which are very close to us now, these twins, they're not as big as the big blue one. They're not as big as that one. That big blue one is that's a big player, and we're seeing it up there now. We are, as we get closer and closer to August, that will obviously get bigger and bigger. And I was saying, in 2019, the Chinese were saying they'd had the biggest storm since 1998, and then in 2020 they'd had the biggest storm since the discovery of Pluto, 1930. With the Three Gorges Dam on the Yangtze River completely filling up with water and reaching kind of, they're saying it's distorting, and who knows, and major flooding in China. And then 2021, we had the worst storms in China for 1,000 years, the worst storms in Europe for 700 years. Flooding all around the world on epic proportions, like we've never seen. Every day you click on, you see cars being washed away somewhere in the world, or massive crazy fires, or the most incredible volcanoes spewing magma in ways you've never ever seen. Largest volcano eruptions ever recorded. It's all going on. And most of us are just in this story that Putin's evil because he won't accept our Mickey Mouse euros and pounds and dollars, our fiat-based currencies, which we don't want to pay him for either. And then we want to make sure he can't access the funds. Then we want to give him 1/8 or whatever it is of the price that we want to sell it on the open market, and then just drive war, and then double the price on the open market, and it's all just Putin's evil if he doesn't play along. And what they want is each human to go into a state where it chooses a story which brings about a terrible end to this earth. Whether it's you just believe, you see Etna going bang and spewing five times more carbon dioxide than the European bloc kind of produces in I don't know how many years, but it's millions. It's, they estimate sometimes the big ones 80 million tons of carbon dioxide from one volcano. And we're seeing so many volcanoes going bang. And our narrative is to go for carbon zero. even with all these volcanoes going bang. And we can see all of these nuclear power stations being built in the name of bringing us down to carbon zero, built on massive fault lines and tsunami hotspots. Like Hinkley Point right next to me, like Fukushima. How many do you know? Built in stupid places. These stories are corrupting us. They're sending us to the dark side. And they're sending some of us to the light side. So we're just going through this big transit now, and we've just got to allow ourselves to go through it and let everyone go with their stories. Not going to change much now. Many of you have had an opportunity to see another way of observing our planetary movements, and that's what I've hopefully shown you. But this is a freight train. This is a freight train now. And there may be miracles that come down the way, but there's a much bigger story playing out that we can't all see from this perspective. And so it's just time for big golden rings of light. You've got nothing to fear. How many times have you died on this earth already? And you see, people are getting old and they're keeping people alive and feeding them morphine and everything else like that, and keeping alive sick for eons, unhappy with these horrible drugs and that sort of stuff. That you just like, you've got nothing to fear. If you die young or you die because of some kind of incident like this, happy days. The experience I had that made me right laughing gas when I was killed, like I say, I saw all the banks going down. And everyone was really excited. And then suddenly the next phase, everyone's starving, hungry. And then that's when they say, right, it's war. And they've ripped apart the banking systems and that sort of stuff, so they can drive us, so they can create the hunger from the anger. They can create the anger from the hunger. And then they're calling out saying, this is your chance for war. And they're going to try and get everyone to go to war. And that's when I was killed by a tsunami. Or something that squeezed me out of my body in a moment. And experienced all that sad and regret that I hadn't tried to stop it in any way, and the weight of it. I couldn't go to a higher place because I was of it. I was of the problem, and so I had to lose everything. And I still think that might have what happened. Maybe I really did die on that day. Maybe this really happened. And this is me going through the karmic wheels of correcting those mistakes in my astral realm. And maybe this is all my astral realm. And that I died in August 2006. But that was the day of the massive tsunami that wiped out my country. And this is me in my last hours before the shutdown of my own astral realm. Who knows? That I had to go through this process. Of shutting up shop in every way, shape and form on little planet Earth. Maybe that really was what happened. I had to look at this horrible human being that I was. Not that I was a horrible human being, but I was just completely in bed with all the bullshit stories. Carbon zero, blah, blah, blah. I had an answer for everything. I was so clever that you wouldn't have been able to get anything from me. I believed in all the globalization and all the little stories, and I had it all. I had an answer for everything. I was so clever, you wouldn't have been able to talk any truth to me. Utterly impermeable to any truth. Too smart for it. Too smart for my own good. I needed something like that to give me the drop kick to see the utter truth. I was in a right old mess at the time. Some festival. Middle class idiot, drunk, pissed. Yeah. Had it coming. Had it coming. Thank you. So anyway, we're going to get to the other side of this, whatever it is. You're all on your story, you're all going your way. Follow your heart. Do your best. You're going to be so pleased that you stay true with what you're really doing and where you're going, and you're independent. You're you know, don't forget, you have your different beliefs, and you have your motivations, and you have your, but it's you know, are you hurting anyone? Are you killing anyone? Are you backing any of these wars? Are you jumping on bed with these kind of some of these horrible arguments that are just there to push nuclear? Well, some of you float so much out of them, you just don't want to get attached to any of those sort of things, and you float above them. And I notice a lot of people do that, and to their credit sometimes, because there's so much disinformation out there. You just, you know, and they spread so much confusion. And I kind of see this, that it's such a massively complicated thing to bring in all these different flybys over and over. And obviously each and every flyby I show you here, we've spent enormous amounts of time calculating them and going in, and most of them, a great majority of them, I've predicted in advance, saying when you're going to see these flybys exactly. And there's obviously that 4-day anomaly, that incorrection, where I was often 4 days out, and it just bugged me for such a long time. And all part of this massive journey, to, and what do I connect to as I connect through this tapestry? Where do I connect in? What place do I find myself? In the great chamber of this celestial magnificus, whatever it is, this mighty thing. So much love, and until next time, and apologies for being so crap with everyone and so much stuff. I've just been a little bit shut down, going through my own process with this. Kind of run out of steam, but God, thank God I've done all that I've done and gone on this massive journey with you all, because what a lovely and amazing journey of discovery it has been. You know, and this isn't right, isn't wrong. It's just a journey, trying to make sense of it, trying to lean towards an understanding of where things are all going. They're all their different angles of intention and how this all fits together. What a big story to get your heads around. What a journey to go on. What a journey to go on. Take care.